Hey, everybody.
We did it. We're live.
I mean, I think you're a magician. I'm convinced you're a magician.
I mean, I know everyone that's listening is probably like, seriously, again, you're excited that you figured it out. Yes, like so excited.
We are. And because there's a little bit of a delay. It's like, are we live or are we not? And then all of a sudden, there we are. We're live.
Yes. And then you're looking and you're not looking. It's all the things.
I know.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
To everybody.
Yes. Thank you, everybody for being here. I know we have some, folks that trickle in a few minutes in, but we have a lot to go over today. So should I get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Colleen. All right. So welcome, everybody. We're going to start with the opener, which is, what is We Built a Bridge? So We Built a Bridge was founded with the core interest of creating a funnel of conversation many hesitate to engage in. I'm Christine, and I'm a transformation coach for women. And this wonderful, fabulous woman next to me is Colleen, and she is a culture and well-being leader to small businesses. United, we offer different perspectives on communication, culture, and life fulfillment to guide you towards a life with integrity and curiosity.
Awesome. And if you notice, I was not going to try the finger pointing. I'm not even going to go there. So
I want you to do it one time, because you know what? If you're right, I will celebrate you for like a good 2 weeks. Hello, Lauren. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Lauren. All right. So let's go ahead and set up for the conversation that we have today. So basically, in case you didn't listen to episode 17, which was our pre-recorded episode that we released last Thursday, Christine and I got into the conversation around the question, why is communication so hard? Which ultimately, that's what we're going to continue in our conversation today. But Christine, you had brought up things like it's hard because of where we currently are in our life today and how we feel about where we are in our life today. You talked about unresolved traumas from the past. You talked about placing expectations on others and how they will react. You talked about overthinking responses because many of us are people pleasers. And then on my end, which I do feel like a lot of what you talked about backs into my response, which was there's no playbook. I mean, it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there in regards to how we're trying to navigate communications, because again, many of us learned or didn't learn from our home environment, good, bad, or indifferent. And then we have all of these people that come together to try to have a conversation, but no one else really came with this playbook. So that is where we went. And as a result of that, from posting the pre-recorded episode, we asked others, why do you think it's so hard? And we got some amazing comments from the listeners, which we'll get into in just a minute. But before we jump into that long-awaited conversation, we have to start with our icebreaker and the question that everyone is dying to know. So this week, Christine Passo, what is the most recent embarrassing moment? And you get to define the word recent.
Thank you. There are plenty because, the last couple of years, I've decided just to kind of like take the risk and go with it and then see what happens. I mean, it's not like an obnoxious thing, but there were plenty. But if I were to pull the most recent, I would say that I have recently joined a new group here in my local community. And the group is focused on wellness from every single angle it comes from. And I decided to set up an introductory post on Facebook. So I wrote this post and I thought, you know what? I'm probably doing something wrong that I'm not supposed to do. And if so, because most of those groups, they require the message to be approved, right? Mm-hmm. Well, my message got denied. And I thought, okay, cool. Now I know why it got denied. No problem. Well, later that night, I went to the first in-person meetup for this group. And I was really, really looking forward to it. And the group leader was talking about, where to post things and when to post things. And she's like, actually, I denied a post earlier today. Who was that? And she's like, scouting the room. And I'm like, I'll own it. And I go, me, it was me. I did it. I got denied. And I just laughed because I'm like, you know what? It was embarrassing, but it wasn't because I learned something. And
Yeah.
so that was the first thing that came to my recent mind.
Okay. So my recent is, and I've posted about this before on LinkedIn. I most mistake me for being athletic because because I loved I mean, exercise is my jam. Like that is my foundation, is physical activity, hiking, running. It's I personally have a challenge going straight. So I only do things in one plane. Like I don't play tennis. I have no hand-eye coordination whatsoever. And so, of course, this happens on a yearly basis. Last year, I'm running home, running, and I tripped over the sidewalk.
Oh,
And oftentimes I can catch myself, and I didn't. I went flying. I mean, so much that I got up and I'm like, I hope my teeth are still in.
oh no.
But the sad part is not one car stopped to ask if I was okay.
My gosh, that breaks my heart. Like I have a little tear that just formed in my heart.
And
That's
girl,
terrible.
and I was a hot mess. I had blood everywhere. Like, and anyways, that is my most recent. I'm due for another one. So more to come on my next trip.
I will tell you, it is still shocking. And I've heard you, I remember when you've posted about it, and I feel like you've even talked about it on our show. And it still baffles me because you seem like, you've got it. Like you've got it. Dr. Colleen has it. Sometimes Dr. Colleen doesn't have it.
Oh, girl, I don't have it. Yeah, especially again, it's like staying in one plane is challenging enough. So no zigzagging for me.
Oh my gosh. That's a great share. Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, Terry, for saying that you've been there. I appreciate it. Goodness gracious. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into that question. Why communication is so hard? Because again, we got some amazing comments from this, and a couple that I've pulled up. So the first one, and I feel like I always say Josiah's name incorrectly, so hopefully I state it correctly, but Josiah Plettle, he had said, and I don't know who the official Shaw is in the quote. Like, I don't know if there's an additional name to go behind this, but he brought up this old quote by Shaw that he said, the problem with communication is the illusion that it happened. And when I read that one, I thought, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly it." Because we do try our hardest. Here's the thing. I'm going to give everyone credit and say that we are trying, right? We're trying the hardest of what we know, of what we learned. And so often that's exactly it. Like we think we had the conversation. We think we were clear. We think we asked enough questions. But did it even happen? So when I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, that is such a brilliant statement. Again, I don't know who the full Shaw is. I need to go back, and I asked Josiah to elaborate on the quote for me because I wanted to make sure I understood it.
Yeah.
And that one has just been sitting in my back pocket to remind me there are that many additional questions that need to be asked and clarifications that need to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what's interesting about it too, that it has me thinking like almost on the other end of the spectrum, which is, was the listener even really thinking that this communication was important to the person that was communicating? So that they're not maybe even paying attention. So the communicator walks away almost like, oh, I'm so glad I got that off my chest. That was really important. And the listener just, it's like no big deal. And that's a huge example of really the quote that Josiah put up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to say, Selena, she made a comment, serious mic drop. I totally agree. I was like, our work is done for the day. Thank you, Josiah, for putting that comment there.
That's right. Laptop shut.
Okay. So the other one that I had noted was Renee Cohen. So she had said, and this somewhat aligned, I think, with both of us, where we were both coming from in the conversation. She said, I think one of the things that makes communication hard is our differences in our backgrounds, our perspectives, and communication styles, which aren't always obvious. Because sometimes what seems straightforward to one person might be perceived entirely different by another due to their unique filters and past experiences. And so again, I feel like both of us had some of that in what we talked about, but I also love that you brought up communication styles, because I know we're going to talk about that in the second half of our show today, in regards to what we have planned around our, our quote unquote solution, if you will.
Yes. Yes. It's, I don't know. I mean, there's so much to talk about. It's like, I could add so much of my thoughts, so many of my thoughts to this, but I want to make sure that we have time. And I think you have another.
I have one more and
yes.
then, I'm going to turn it over to you. So Renee DeVore. So she said, this is another one. I've been learning so much about like inner child work. Anyway, so she said, I think we carry so much of our childhood into adulthood, which that to me is a hard yes, especially when we think about trauma and things like that. But we carry so much of our childhood into adulthood when it comes to our communication styles. It's the one thing we don't explicitly teach in schools, and we should. It's the cornerstone for success in any relationship, life, and work. And what really caught me there, and again, I felt like it was very aligned, right? Some of the things that I had said about what we learn in our home environment. But what I love that she brought up is we don't teach how to communicate in school. Mm-hmm. We don't. What a huge opportunity. I mean, that's something much bigger, right? That goes up to state and legislation and changing curriculums and things like that. But we literally are not teaching how to communicate. We are teaching how to speak and how to read, but that does not mean communication.
Right. Right. So and you know what? It's so amazing. And it makes me think about like during those impressionable years, we're learning more about what's right and wrong, which equates to what I say is right and what you say is wrong. And it sets that tone for miscommunication.
Yeah. So those were the three that I pulled. What did you have?
I love that. So I pulled, the first one I pulled was from Angela Johnson, and she had sent me an email about this. She said, communication is hard because we make it hard with our one-sidedness, the need to be right, the lack of understanding, empathy, compassion, and mismatched communication styles. I mean, it's just, she pretty much wrapped it all up into one thing. And what I want to talk about is that she talked about understanding, lack of understanding. And I think that's another thing that we're taught as we're growing up is, it's important to understand each other. And I truly feel that it's impossible to place an understanding on how somebody else feels. We have to replace it with acceptance, because we're not in their body. We don't know their unresolved issues. We don't know the pain they feel. We don't know the trauma that they carry, the baggage. So for us to understand really where someone else is coming, I think we're throwing an automatic barrier into our communication. So I love that she said that, because we've been trained to think we have to understand each other, which actually was a word that a lot of the people that commented on both of our posts brought up, that there's a lack of understanding. We don't understand each other.
Yeah. And I know we've been talking about that. I'm still I'm still processing it. I appreciate, I'm going to use my communication. I appreciate where you're coming from. I'm still processing the understanding and awareness. The one thing that I'll comment on that she, where she talked about feeling like we have to be right or wrong. And that is also it. Like, it's okay if there are differences. Every conversation doesn't have to end in agreement. It can end in a disagreement. And that's okay. It's just what words did we use? How did we position it? How did we state it? And so just a big opportunity there to teach that there isn't a winner or a loser when we're having communication, or a conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's almost like taking that word acceptance that I had and adding compassion before it, like compassionate acceptance, because not everything will end exactly the way we want it. And if we accept with compassion, then I think, it might be easier to move forward. But hey, every conversation is different. So let me move on to the next one. This was almost my favorite because it is straight and to the point. And it was written by Lauren Bensikovich. And she said, "Woo, what a shit show communication can be."
So
I was like, another one of those things, mic drop, close the laptop, I'm done for the day. See you next week. I mean, it is absolutely true. I mean, we could pull word after word out of the dictionary about why it's so hard. And it really can absolutely be a shit show.
And so it's interesting because Scott and I, we talk about this a lot, especially because of the construction world, right? And what we talk about in regards to it being a shit show is, unfortunately, and I know, again, this is something that we have kind of teed up in our solution, is the way we're taught to communicate from a gender standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Men are taught to communicate differently than women. And oftentimes the ego plays a much stronger role. And so again, this takes me to my husband and the conversations we have in construction is there's an opportunity to learn how to communicate that's not about conflict,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's but it ends up being a shit show because everyone's pointing the finger at somebody.
Right.
When at the end of the day, it's about how do we manage the conflict and remove our ego from the conversation.
Yeah. You just sparked something in my brain, which is, I coach a lot about, wait, what did I just say? Did I say the word blame?
No,
in my
you
brain. Okay. For a minute, I thought I said blame, and I'm like, well, I said that too soon. But I talk a lot about not blaming, right? Like not pointing fingers. And if we can pull that for, out of your example, which is everybody wants to write, it's like, let's stop pointing fingers, which means stop pointing the finger at yourself and just say, all right, this didn't work. How can we make it better moving forward? But again, we're taught to be right or wrong. And then we're taught to correct it. Everything is like fix, correct instead of accept, but just really interesting.
I love I'm sorry, just really quick. My mind just went to, of course, troubleshooting. I mean, that's right. Blaming it's just continuing to take the next step in problem solving. Yes. Sorry, go ahead. What's your third?
Absolutely. Great. I love that comment. So the last one was written by Jessica Weiss. And she said, one of the biggest challenges that we face with communication is that we all get too far into our own heads, questioning every word, every intonation. Oh, that hit.
Good. Yeah. Because we have this story that we're already playing, making, whatever it is that doesn't, it may not even happen.
No. It's, and we do it. It's like we make these assumptions and then we try to plan according to our assumptions, but we have no idea how the other folks are feeling. And asking those questions that you talked about earlier is so incredibly important. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we move into what we strongly feel isn't just a beautiful resolution to all this?
No, let's go into this. I think it's a perfect time to segue into it.
Okay, awesome. So as we already know, and as all of you already know, this is such an important topic of conversation and one we just can't hide behind anymore. We debuted our show, We Built a Bridge, in mid-November, and we've brought a lot of interesting topics to you as our listeners. In addition, you, our listeners, have had a lot to share with us about those topics. And honestly, the next step that Colleen and I decided to take was a no-brainer. We've said it over and again, communication and connection are at the core of everything we do at work and in our personal lives. It is no secret that honestly, we're all suffering. We don't live in the days of running to the door when someone rings the bell, or sprinting to the phone on the wall when a new call comes in. Instead, we're ducking and hiding. And without clear communication and strong connection, we're dismissing many opportunities to create strong relationships with coworkers, clients, and develop more intentional personal relationships. Dr. Colleen and I have spent the better part of this year designing the Build Bridges program that teaches compassionate communication and connectability. Build Bridges is an intensive 6-week virtual group program welcoming 4 to 8 person cohorts. The program offers attendees weekly one-on-one coaching with either Colleen or myself and includes 2 60-minute follow-up sessions as a group at both week 9 and week 12, because we all know practice and continuity is what creates change. The thing is, organizations have training and development budgets for this very reason, right? They want their team members to be able to communicate and work together well. So this is a perfect opportunity to knock on your leader's door and say, hey, can I bug into this budget here? The program, we will guide you through 6 weekly 90-minute virtual sessions, beginning with why communication is so hard and wrap with what we all know to exist, which is multidimensional grief in and out of the workplace. In total, the program is 8 sessions. So, with summer traditionally being the slower time for many industries, this is the perfect time to enroll in a course that offers improved communication teachings in the form of self reflection, work camaraderie, and leadership techniques. You know, this is, I mean, you package the whole thing together. We're talking about a $2,500 to $3,000 training program, and we're offering the first 2 cohorts at a significantly lower cost. We know it's a win-win, and we want to entice you to begin your communication improvement journey while helping us fine-tune the program with your feedback. The first cohort begins June 12th and is priced at $599 per person. The second cohort begins August 7th and is priced at $1,200 per person. We also invite small organizations to book us for your company with custom weekly dates to suit your schedule. I mean, we cannot think of a better way to get your leadership team on the same page than with this group training. So obviously, Colleen and I, we started We Built a Bridge. It's 2 of us. And we have learned so much in having these shows with you and hearing your feedback, how important it is when you involve 2 people in communication, right? Because communication doesn't exist unless there are 2 people, which is why we are holding these courses together. With 2 people, you have a 2-dimensional conversation and a learning environment that offers the most impact. And I mean, I'm just so thrilled about it. And we have more details to share. We do have a website page, but just real quick to dig into what each week will represent, I want to talk a little bit about week 1 and week 2. So week 1, as I mentioned earlier, begins with why communication is so damn hard, right? We've had already 2 shows about it. In fact, it's the basis of We Built a Bridge. So we'll be able to really get into the specifics during these classes. And then the second week is about typical communication styles, which is what Colleen already mentioned a little bit. We all gravitate towards one of 4 different communication styles, and we dig into that. And Colleen, I'd love for you to share more about week 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. So first of all, great summary. Thank you for taking that. Thank you for taking that in the episode. I appreciate you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Yeah. So week 3. So then we're coming off of, as Christine just said, week 2, we're coming off of understanding the 4 different styles of communication. Week 3, we're going into, okay, how do we take what we now know as our kind of the communication style that maybe we lean heavier toward? How do we take that and use it to override past experiences that tend to often come up as our first response or reaction when we are having conversations with others? Week 4, I'm going to pause. So before I go into week 4, I probably should also mention, because I teed this up a little bit when we were going through at the beginning of the episode, week 3 will also integrate things like gender conditioning, respecting that men and women are taught different forms of communication. And so how do we, again, override that in conversations? We also first have to recognize it, right, to override it. So I didn't want to dismiss not mentioning that. Week 4, since that's about midweek, it is a strong reflection week. So because what we have teed up for every week's training is homework, so that everyone can come and share, we're going to reflect back to everything that we've done, talked about, experienced, worked through together to ensure that we understand where we're headed going forward. And so also in week 4, we will talk about things like triggers. That is often painful, right? It comes up in these forms of triggers, and how do we then, again, override them and course correct them as we're communicating forward. And then week 5, in my mind, I always go to crucial conversations, but difficult conversations. So week 5 is difficult conversations. These happen a lot in a day, in a week, right? The person at the grocery store that maybe cut in front of you with their cart, like difficult conversations are there. But just because I define them one way or Christine maybe defines them the other way doesn't mean we want to diminish how you potentially define them. So we're going to talk about what are difficult conversations. How do we make them less difficult? How do we navigate them, not through manipulation, but through getting to a result that both desire? Again, not trying to have a win or a loss. Do you want to take week 6, Christine?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And I want to interrupt really quick so that our listeners are not confused that I one-on-one coach women in my personal coaching career, but this course is for all genders. This is not gender specific. It is important for us to host all people in this style of communication. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then yes, so coming off of difficult conversations, we feel it feeds right into grief in the workplace. So very often we associate the word grief with death, with the loss of somebody through death. But it's not just about death. It's about your mentor who left the company and now you don't have anybody to communicate with. It's about being one of the ones left behind after a mass layoff. It's about not having anybody that you can communicate with in the workplace. There is grief all over the place that we're not addressing. And Colleen and I very compassionately will, bring this up during week 6 and, as we rope it in with difficult conversation. So and then of course, week 7, it's not week 7, but it's the 7th session will be 3 weeks after the 6th session. And then session 8 will be 3 weeks after the 7th session as that follow-up. So it's just going to be information packed. You will finish this course a different person.
Yeah. And I know we're coming up closer to time, but I do think that there's at least one question that might be valuable to answer is what if I can't attend all the sessions? Should I still register? And our hope is that yes, you will still register. So we are not going to record any of these sessions. It is training for those that are there real time, right? One session is built off the other. So again, even if you were to maybe miss one, you can still leverage those one-on-ones that we have set up on a weekly basis, and you'll still get the homework. And what's great about the homework is we bring that into each session. So that will hopefully also help you feel like, okay, I don't feel lost. I feel caught up and I can continue forward with the session that I'm able to now engage in. So I wanted to at least address that one question.
No, I'm really glad you did. I think that's really important. So we do have a website page, and I have a post that is launching in 3 minutes that has more information, but please feel free to DM Dr. Colleen or myself, and we can send you that direct link. We can set up a call, or we could just DM more information, but get signed up, save money today. Because the benefit I'm telling you is going to be for the rest of your life. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. Sound good, Colleen?
Sounds great.
All right. So we go live every other Thursday on LinkedIn and YouTube from 12 to 12:30 p.m. Eastern, and we release our brief pre-recorded show on the Thursdays in between as a teaser to invite your comments and discussion, just as we did today. We're as predictable as a dog chasing a squirrel. Tune in to our pre-recorded episode dropping Thursday, May 23rd on YouTube, which will be a warm-up to the live episode on May 30th. Thank you so much, everybody. We are so grateful for you, sharing your time with us today. Please DM us about this program. We would love to have you join us, and we would love your feedback.
Yeah. And again, to echo Christine, thank you so much for your continued support. We love having you all here and or listening to us in the recording. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're the best. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Have a good weekend too. Bye.